Hi, my name is Mike Davis. I'm a Guide 1 up here at Hearst Castle, and today I'd like to talk with you a little bit about construction history and the construction timeline of the main structures up here on the hilltop. I've been asked many times on tour, which buildings came first? Did the bungalows come first? Did the main house come first? Where did Mr. Hearst draw his inspiration from? Why did he build in such a remote location up here, 1,600 feet above sea level? Well, the first thing you have to do, you have to hire an architect. And the architect Mr. Hearst hired was Julia Morgan. She received her civil engineering degree in 1894 in UC Berkeley, first woman to get her certificate from the École in France in 1902. For her, this is job 503 of over 700 projects she did in her career. Mr. Hearst approached her early in 1919 and said, I want to build a little something up here on the hilltop. I'm getting a little tired of sleeping in tents. I'm getting a little too old for that. And that little something morphed into a 28-year project that was never fully finished. Some of Mr. Hearst's original plans were he wanted a larger building, such as Casa Grande behind me, that was going to be surrounded by 3 different smaller structures or bungalows. He also wanted a separate ground design, garden design if you will, that would have had small pathways and a meandering walkway, later called an esplanade, that's about a quarter mile in length around the monument today. Prior to construction, Mr. Hearst actually had plans of building an English Renaissance stone building directly to my left, where the north wing or the recreation wing is standing today. This was a small project at first, but then it became quite elaborate. 2 floors, 6 rooms with a 22 by 50 foot banquet hall. Mr. Hearst even purchased an old English stone cottage, had it shipped over, and he wanted to incorporate that in construction. That idea was later scrapped, and he wanted to build that cottage down at the bottom of the hill, and that never came to fruition. So work began on Casa Grande, or so he thought. He wanted the construction to begin in September of 1919 and have it finished by June 1920. That was not going to happen. So he quickly changed his minds and said, we need to start working on the bungalows instead. So I want you to think of this as a 4-phase project. Phase 1 would be the bungalows. Foundations for the 3 bungalows would be poured in 1920. The first bungalow is La Casa del Monte, House of the Mountains. 4 bedrooms, 4 bath, about 2,500 square feet. The second bungalow that was completed was La Casa del Sol, House of the Sun, 18 rooms, 3,600 square feet. And the third bungalow, La Casa del Mar, the larger of the 3, 18 rooms, 3 floors, over 5,000 square feet. So the phases of construction, we walk past the bungalows, that's phase 1. Phase 2, the center portion of the big house. Phase 3, the service wing. And phase 4, the recreation wing of the house. If you would, I want you to think of the building behind me as a goalpost, with the gate directly behind me as a portion in the ground, and the right upright being the service wing, and the left upright being the recreation wing of the house. Kind of hard to imagine, isn't it? So we're in luck. Today I have my miniature reproduction of the castle that'll help make this a little bit easier to visualize. This model was done by former castle employee DeRoy Jensen, and it makes everything a little bit easier to visualize. So the 4 phases of construction, again, the bungalows were phase 1, and phase 2 is the center portion of the big house. Now this was poured in a non-linear fashion, and what I mean by that is the foundation was put in just for the center of the house. The foundations for the service wing on the right-hand side and the recreation wing on the left-hand side were poured at a different time. So the first version of the center portion of the house was originally a 2-story building, and the first version of the towers were put in by 1924. Things were going congruently during construction, and in 1924, on the service wing, the south wing on this side, there was a small kitchen that was put in. And by 1926, The first foundation for the service wing was put in, and the rest of the floors were poured by 1927. The service wing was used primarily for the housing of workers and staff, and also served as the area for the large pantry and kitchen that Mr. Hearst had. So we have phase 2, the center portion, phase 3, the service wing, and finally phase 4, the recreation wing of the house, the north wing. Now originally there were 2 oak trees in that location, and these had to be moved. And this was in 1925. It took about 6 to 8 months to move these trees, and it left a huge excavated area in that location. And Mr. Hearst then decided this was the time to put the first foundation in. This was done in 1926. And then Mr. Hearst had an idea. He wanted to put a 3-lane bowling alley down in the center of the recreation wing. The problem is he only had room for 2 lanes. So they had to completely remove the first foundation that was put in 1926 with a second foundation that was put in 1929. And also during that time, the first floor of the north wing, which was the theater and the billiard room, was poured at that time, with the rest of the floors being poured by 1930. And no, the bowling alley was never completed. Other work was being done on the castle. The towers were being raised, the bells were being put in. Mr. Hearst's Gothic study was put in. The last rooms that were completed were the rooms above the theater in the recreation wing, and those were completed in 1947. Quick correction, I had mentioned the rooms above the theater finished in 1947. They were actually finished in 1948, 1 year after Mr. Hearst left for the last time. Steel reinforced concrete was used not only for strength and durability, but also for its earthquake and fire resistance. They were well aware of that 1906 earthquake in San Francisco. They quarried the aggregate for the concrete up here. The aggregate is known as Franciscan melange, which is quite common on the Central Coast. They brought sand up from the beaches. They had to clean the salt out to use it in the mixing. Concrete is very receptive to artistic expression, as can be seen on the front of the big house. You know, I look at technology today versus how it was 100 years ago, and today you can bring out your phone and you can take an image and write a text and send it anywhere in the world just like that. I imagine Julia Morgan coming up here in 1919 for the first time, maybe with a pad and pencil, or maybe carrying a box camera. She's thinking about infrastructure up here. Water, they need to bring water in. There's a number of artesian wells located over my right shoulder, and they built a gravity flow system from there down on this side of the hill back up into the towers, each tower containing 2,500 gallons of water. They also use that water to generate electricity. Electricity was not up here until 1926, so they generated their own electricity from 1920 to 1926 with gas generators and the hydroelectric power they built. Where do you get the workers from? 1919, the population of San Simeon was under 30, and Cambria was pretty small as well, so they brought workers from San Francisco and Los Angeles. But how do you feed them? How do you house them? How do you entertain them? They actually showed movies outside for the workers to keep them entertained. You're 1,600 feet above sea level. Really the only thing indigenous up here are the oaks, the bays, the pines, and the manzanita. Definitely not the palm trees you see behind me, or the Italian cypress. Those were brought up by truck. Up the same road the workers came up, a 5-mile dirt road that was not paved until the 1960s. So really, if you think of it, this was truly a remarkable feat done by a group of very dedicated and creative individuals. So that's it for now. Hope to see you soon. I hope to see you on any of our tours, and we can share with you this amazing work of art and accomplishment. Thank you so much.